Welcome to week 6. The topic for this week is learning and identity. We will talk about how identities can be used in learning. So, identity is important to the gaming and learning experience. It can help people feel more engaged and get a sense of self-achievement when completing a task. In this case, virtual identity, real-world identity, and projective identity help people to learn and create an immersive environment. So we will talk about virtual identity first. Virtual identity refers to the identity that an individual adopts within a virtual or digital environment. This identity can be different from the individual's real-world identity and is often shaped by the roles, actions, and interactions that occur within the virtual space. So in class, learners need to be able to engage in language, interactions, and actions that allow them to take on the identity of a scientist. But what this means is that there are many different sciences and types of scientists. Teachers must implement a set of values, beliefs, and methods in a classroom through words, actions, and interactions that represent what it means for teachers and students to be a particular kind of scientist in a classroom. Doing so means taking on a particular view of a particular branch of science as a set of cognitive and social practices. This could help students to study the text more thoroughly before the experiment. And real-world identity can also help to learn. This means a person's actual identity in the real world outside of the game, and the identity and experiences that influence gameplay decisions. So in class, students' real-world identities are incorporated. Every student brings their real-life identities with them. To do active and critical learning in the present, they need to learn how to connect at least one of these identities to the virtual identities. So they will need to try to build a strong network of these relationships between their identities. And then for the projective identity, it refers to the intersection between real identity and virtual identity, that what the real identity can affect the gaming experience. In class, if learners adopt projective identity in science class, projecting their own values and desires onto a virtual identity that assumes a scientist, the students can get the power to identify with the virtual identity as a real-world identity. And they will feel what it feels like to have the power to actually become the kind of scientist or person they want to be and build their character in the classroom.
I'm going to talk about identities and learning, which is the main topic of this week's design reading. I'm going to talk about it from several aspects, and the first aspect will be video games as learning models. I'm going to use Minecraft as example through this section. Video games are not merely forms of entertainment, they are potent tools for learning, embodying principles that encourage deep engagement and identity exploration. Players often adopt new identities within these games, which facilitates a deeper connection and understanding of the content, similar to how learners might engage with educational materials when they see themselves as capable within that domain. Video games like Minecraft exemplify powerful educational tools that integrate effective learning principles, promoting deep engagement through identity exploration. In the game, players assume various roles, from builders to adventurers, each influencing their interaction with the game world. This mirrors how students might adopt different scientific or mathematical identities in classroom, enabling them to connect more deeply with the subject matter and enhancing their overall learning experience. Identity and deep learning. Here, deep learning actually means active and critical learning, and it's essential for learners to adopt new, empowering and identities with active and critical learning. In the game Minecraft, the player may see themselves as master architects or survival experts, engaging deeply in these roles to achieve recognition within the Minecraft community. Similarly, students need to perceive themselves as capable and recognized members within academic domains, understanding that mastering this can lead to real-world benefits and acceptance. Here's an example in UW-Madison Microsoft community that someone built a Deja residence hall. Yeah, that's awesome. Challenges with identity in education. Students often face challenges when educational identities do not align with their culture or social backgrounds. For instance, just as a player might feel disconnected if the game community or the game themes are culturally irrelevant, students might feel alienated by curricula that do not reflect their backgrounds. To mention this, in Minecraft, educators can use the game to create culturally relevant scenarios, such as building historical monuments that celebrate different cultures. So this helps bridge this gap. Bridging personal and learning identities. Educators can help students bridge their personal and academic identities by integrating familiar and engaging tools like Minecraft into the learning process. For example, using the game Minecraft to simulate scientific processes or historical events can make the subjects more accessible and relevant to students, thereby enhancing their connection to the new academic roles they are encouraged to adopt. Creating compelling educational environments. Here you can see a picture that someone built a 1 Hz CPU in Minecraft, and this was once very famous. Just as the game captivates players with its endless possibilities for creation and exploration, educational environments should strive to offer similar levels of engagement. Implementing project-based learning that mimics Minecraft's gameplay can transform traditional classroom settings. Students might engage in building sustainable ecosystems with Minecraft, which parallels real-world environment science, maintaining high relevance and engagement. Practical applications for education. These strategies for engagement observed in Minecraft can be adapted to improve educational practices significantly by allowing students to explore different roles within the game, such as an engineer solving structural problems or historical recreating ancient cities. Educators can promote exploration of diverse subjects. Okay, I'm gonna briefly introduce G's principle 6 to 14, which is also part of this week's assigned reading. Let's start with the sixth principle, psychosocial moratorium principle. That is, learners can take risks in a space where real-world consequences are lowered. A typical example is the game The Sims. In the game, players can experiment with life choices and social interactions without real-world consequences, and this provides a safe place to explore various personal and career paths. The seventh principle is committed learning principle. That is, learners can participate in extended engagement as an extension of their real-world identities in relation to a virtual identity to which they feel some commitment and a virtual world that they find compelling. A typical example is the game World of Warcraft, where players invest extensive time developing their characters and immersing themselves in a richly detailed world. And this is actually kind of commitment to their virtual identities and the game's community. The eighth principle is identity principle. Learning involves taking on and playing with identities in such a way that the learner has real choices and ample opportunity to meditate on the relationship between new identities and new and old ones. There's a tripartite play of identities as learners relate and reflect on. There are multiple real-world identities, a virtual identity and a projective identity. A typical example is the game Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Skyrim allows players to choose and develop character skills, moral alignments, and personal quests, and this reflects on how these choices align or conflict with their own values and previous gaming experiences. The ninth principle is self-knowledge principle. That is, the virtual world is constructed in such a way that learners learn not only about the domain but also about themselves and their current and potential capabilities. Portal is such an example that it challenges players to solve puzzles that require understanding both the game mechanics and one's own problem-solving capabilities and promoting self-awareness of one's thinking and learning processes. The 10th principle is amplification of input principle. For little input, learners get a lot of output. In Minecraft, I believe all of us have played this. Simple actions like mining or crafting can lead to the creation of complex structures or entire ecosystems, offering high outputs from minimal inputs. The 11th principle is achievement principle, and this is actually kind of similar to the pleasant frustration that we have learned, I think. That is, for learners of all levels of skill, there are intrinsic rewards from the beginning, customized to each learner's level, effort, and growing mastery, and signaling the learner's ongoing achievements. A very good example is Dark Souls. This game provides intrinsic rewards through its challenging gameplay, and players of all skill levels can achieve milestones that are deeply satisfying and tailored to their growing mastery. The 12th principle is practice principle. Learners get lots and lots of practice in a context where the practice is not boring. They spend lots of time on task. An example is the game FIFA football series. The game encourages continuous practice in skills ranging from basic controls to complex strategies within an engaging context that mimics the excitement of real-world soccer. The 13th principle is ongoing learning principle. The distinction between learner and master is vague, since learners, thanks to the operation of the regime of confidence principle listed next, must at higher and higher levels undo their routinized mastery and adapt to new or changed conditions. There are cycles of new learning, automatization, undoing automatization, and new reorganized automatization. Factorial is such an example that it requires players to continually optimize and reorganize their industrial setups to meet the increasing production demands, promoting cycles of learning, automation, and relearning. As we mentioned just now, the 14th principle, regime of competence, is The learner gets ample opportunity to operate within, but at the outer edge of his or her resources, so that at those points things felt as challenging but not undoable. Um, Celeste is such a example that it challenges players with platforming tasks that are difficult but achievable, and this pushes them to operate at the edge of their gaming skills in a supportive, progressive learning environment. And I believe many games are like this. Okay, so that's pretty much everything about G's Principle 6 to 14.
I'll be talking about the game Amended. The game is a multimedia interactive game that explores the experience and psychological impact of being a drone pilot. This game offers a deep insight into the psychological state and moral conflict of each character through player interaction. Player experience the day of the drone pilot through short episodes. Each episode requires players to make important decisions, which directly affect the game progression. Let's look at the main feature of the game. Storytelling. The game is structured in an episode format. Each episode is short and intense, and the story unfolds differently based on player choices. This allows players to deeply understanding the complex psychological state and moral conflict of the character. Graphic style. The game uses simple 2D graphic. This helps convey the game's message more powerfully. The simple graphic ensure that players are not distracted by visual elements and can focus on the story and choices. Minigame. The game includes various mini-games that reflected the game character's daily routine and inner emotion. These activities adapt to the character and help player connect with his experience. For example, in the first mini-game, the character is running away from people, praying not to get caught. After finishing the game, the character has a nightmare where he's being chased and he wakes up panting. These allow players to experience his psychological distresses. Relation between the game Amended and identity. James Paul G explained that games facilitate identity work, allowing players to explore and reflect on new identity in powerful way. This is closely related to the game Amended. While playing Amended, players explore the identity of a drone pilot. The game encourages players to experience the psychological conflict and moral dilemma faced by the drone pilot. This process fosters new identity formation and self-reflection, leading to deeper and more meaningful learning. For example, the choices players make as a drone pilot prompt them to explore their own moral value and psychological limit. This aligns with G's concept of projective identity, where players project their value and desire onto the virtual character. Therefore, Amended is more than just a game. It is important a tool for understanding and exploring identity.
To the virtual identity, real world identity, and projective identity we've talked about, we have 4 discussion questions. Can you remember an experience of your real world identity affected your decisions in a game? According to the game Unmanned, do you think real world identity can influence virtual identity? Why or why not? What are the potential problems of trying to adopt projective identity in class? How did the identity you learned through a video game help you in your school classes? How did this experience affect your identity? So that's all for our presentation this week. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.